back to the show.
Take care, Polly Wally.
9 to noon. Good stuff.
Just listen. That's a great setup, Bob.
You like that? You like that?
Here they come. It's 9 to noon right now. Hey there. Cool win for your Minnesota Wild last night. Hey.
It's time to drop the puck.
Down a bunch of players, went to St. Louis and jumped the Blues, and we had a goalie goal. John Hines, coach of the Minnesota Wild, 1 hour from now. Good luck to the beloved Lynx in Game 3 of the WNBA Finals tonight at Target Center. Aaron Judge finally hit a postseason home run. And Julius Randle makes his Minnesota Timberwolves debut this evening in a preseason game against the Chicago Bulls. Good morning. It's 9 to noon. We're in the air. It's Paul Allen, Norda by my side. These are the good old days, and the undefeated Minnesota Vikings battle the reigning division champions, the Detroit Lions, Sunday at U.S. Bank Stadium. The boom is at noon, and joining us now is football immortality. Lomas Brown, the analyst for the Detroit Lions radio network. He calls games with Dan, the man on the fan. What a career the man chuckling had, Lomas Brown, by the way. 11-year left tackle for the Barry Sanders-led Detroit Lions, and in all played 18 seasons, making 251 starts. Lomas, it's Paul Allen. Appreciate you helping, and congratulations on just a wonderful career, my man.
Oh, Paul, I really appreciate that, man, especially getting love from the purple guys up there. So I appreciate the love coming this way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the love for now. And you and I have we have fist bumped either at Ford Field or U.S. Bank Stadium so many times. I should have known all this. I mean, when I went to deep diving the Lomas Brown stats and Pro Football Reference and stuff like that, and getting ready for this, I mean, I knew you played a long time, but the accolades are coming now with a reverence and respect for the career that included 251 starts. But we do have a blemish in there. Lomas was the starting left tackle for the 2000 New York Giants.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on, man. When did you know the Vikings were no match for Big Blue in the NFC title game, a 41-0 victory for New York?
Wow, Paul, you going way back in the Wayback Machine right now. But, I got a smile and a little chuckle because that probably was one of the most complete games that I had ever been a part of. And it was unexpected, to be honest with you. We did not know that game was going to turn out that way. We expected more of a contest from Minnesota that day. But, that was my first NFC championship game winner. And that was my first time getting to a Super Bowl in my 16th year. So I was really happy. The Super Bowl didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out, but it was great getting there. And I'm sorry we had to beat the Minnesota Vikings to get there.
Hey, what overall, with the way the game has gone, since you retired. All right, so say it's a passing game, a passing league. Just the offensive linemen, specifically the tackles, require a lot of them required to be more nimble than say they used to be. And why I bring it up is you played in a time with Jonathan Ogden, Walter Jones, Orlando Pace. You were always one of the 4 or 5 best tackles in the NFL, and there were Hall of Fame tackles, man. Have you, like, whether it's Taylor Decker or whether it's Christian Darrisaw or whomever, what do you think of the left tackles in the NFL these days?
Yeah, I think it's getting back to the old days, Paul, of what you were talking about, where you got multiple guys that have all-pro maybe possibly Hall of Fame ability, and they're playing against each other. You just named off some of the guys. I mean, think about Gary Zimmerman, who's a Hall of Famer, Jimbo Covert. All those guys were playing at the same time I was playing, and we were kind of taking Pro Bowls and accolades from each other. But that's how it was back in the day. And not only that, the guys that played your position, but what about the guys you had to go up against? Me, I think the one guy I battled the more than anybody in the league was Chris Dolman, the late, great Chris Dolman. I mean, I think I played against him like 22 times, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a lot of back and forth going with me and him. Of course, we came in the same year in 1985, and I tell you what, you guys had some great defenses up there when you had Millard, John Randall, Henry Thomas, and like I say, the great Chris Dolman. So it was fun going up against you guys, but it was very, very hard.
All right, we're going to hit on the Vikings and the Lions coming up here shortly, but I mean the audience knows me. If I get football immortality,
Down memory lane we go.
I mean I got some questions that I got to ask. Just one more. So you're out of Florida. I know you were a first round pick. You went 6th overall to the Lions, right?
Yes.
All right. So your rookie season, you're going against the 85 Bears defense. I mean, one of the great defenses with the 46, and then Fensick and Plank doing things that safeties never have done. What was it like as a rookie, Lomas, going against that 85 Bears defense?
Paul, OMG. It was horrible. I mean, you named off a couple of those guys, but throw in Richard Dent, Refrigerator Perry, McMichaels, Hampton, Singletary, Wilbur Marshall, Richardson. I mean, the Durson, the list just goes on and on. And like you were saying, that 46 defense was brand new, so nobody knew how to block it, man. I mean, we played them my first year. It seemed like they had guys coming from everywhere. I mean, it was just unbelievable, the constant pressure that 46 defense put on you. And then you had a guy like Mike Singletary in the middle just controlling everything. So I do say, and I played against the Ravens, the 2000 Ravens. I was on the 02 Tampa Bay team, that defense, and I played against the 86. I think we played against the 86 Giants team. To me, I just think that 85 Bears defense was the best defense that at least I've ever played against in my 18-year career. It was phenomenal. Buddy Ryan was phenomenal. It was a tough task to beat those Bears back in the day.
Well, I think whether it's with Detroit, Arizona, Cleveland, the Giants, the Bucks, these teams for which you played. Now, Lomas played a decade and change with the Lions. That's the team with whom he came into the league. I think through it all, you have a 10-16 record against the Minnesota Vikings. However, I mean, you have a couple of memorable victories. We talked about the NFC title game with the Giants, but now you mentioned 0-2 and the Buccaneers. I mean, we're down there and Brad Johnson throwing 5 touchdowns. I mean, that cannon's firing so frequently. I'm feeling like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. You know what I mean?
Hey, and that was my guy, Brad Johnson, and of course, you guys had him up there in Minnesota because we faced him when I was in Detroit. But, man, just such a great player, man. Just a great leader for us, man. That was the one thing we never had to worry about on that 02 Tampa team was our leadership because Brad was there. He led us, man. He played phenomenal that whole year, and he's one of the biggest reasons. They say that the defense was the biggest reason we won the Super Bowl. I think it was Brad Johnson because, again, first handling Coach Gruden, being able to handle Coach Gruden because of how demanding he was, but then running that West Coast offense, he ran to perfection for us. So, to me, Brad was the man. And, I forgot about we did have that cannon firing a lot down there. You're right.
All right, last one here, I promise.
Down memory lane we go.
Down memory lane we go. Lomas Brown, analyst for the Lions Radio Network, Vikings and Lions, Sunday at noon. Lomas played 18 years in the NFL, 251 starts. Holy cow. That Bucks team, your Bucks team in 02. I joke with your former teammate and current Vikings wide receivers coach, Keenan McCardell, quite a bit about this because it still surprises me. He caught 2 passes in the Super Bowl. Both were touchdowns, and he didn't get the MVP. Are you kidding me?
I know. And I'm telling you, Keenan was the man. That is my guy right there. I appreciate Keenan McCardell for my ring I have on my finger. And he was like that all year long. I mean, yeah, he got the shine in the big game, but he was like that all year long for us. Think about it. We had Keyshawn. Somebody had to keep Keyshawn in control, and that was Keenan, So it was great playing with him. I love every time I see him on the sideline or I get an opportunity to see him during the game, man, I have to give him some love because he's one of my favorite teammates that I've ever played with. So shout out to Keenan. That's my guy.
Oh, yeah, he's terrific. Now, to the game this weekend, how do the Lions get around the sad loss of Aiden Hutchinson?
It's going to be tough, Paul. It really is. It's almost kind of like, and it still is, like a black cloud that's kind of hanging over the state. I mean, you talk about a kid that grew up here in Michigan, idolized the Lions, went to the University of Michigan, and got drafted by the Lions. So that guy's loved around these parts here. And when he went down, man, you could just feel it. You could just feel it back here. You could feel it when we were in the booth in Dallas. And it's going to be tough, but like Dan Campbell always says, it's the next guy mentality. And, nobody's going to feel sorry for us. It's a lot of teams that we faced this year that hadn't had their best player because of injury in the game, and we've taken advantage of it. So hopefully we'll be able to overcome this injury. But I'm telling you, this is a huge, huge loss for us. And I'm just going to have to see how we react to the loss of Aiden Hutchinson this weekend versus Minnesota.
Well, ever since they took Josh Pascal from Kentucky, second round 3 years ago, maybe he hasn't lived up to what fans thought the hype would be, but he's super gifted. You know that. So like Pascal and then Onwuzurike, they're undoubtedly going to play more. I mean, this feels like it might have like a hockey line change thing to it, where people are just like rolling in and out, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing to look for too, Paul, look for a lot of line movement. Look for a lot of stunts, ETs, TTs. Look for slants. Look for different things like that because, again, I think, I don't know one-on-one if we'll be able to hold up against you guys the whole game like that. And I think the most effective thing when you're a defensive line and you're maybe missing some guys or you don't have your full complement of guys is movement up front. You just can't sit there one-on-one and try to take on these big guys. I think you'll see a lot more movement out of our defensive linemen this game. And then also I think you'll see our linebackers try to fill the gaps a little bit more. Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez. I think you'll see those guys trying to fill in the gaps a lot more to help with that run. So I'm expecting a lot more movement up front from our defensive linemen to be effective versus your offensive line.
Hey, Lomas, year after year, or the last few years, let's say, whether it's free agency or via the draft, do your Lions keep drafting corners and safeties to get a hold of Justin Jefferson? I mean, who averages, he averages 132 a game versus the Lions through 8 games.
So that's what happens. So think about it. I think a lot of teams, especially teams in your division, they have to match up to what you're doing. Right now, like you say, Justin Jefferson, the cream of the crop, period, in the NFL. We have to devise ways of trying to you can't stop him, but slow him down. And he's been a big, big problem for us the last couple of years. And as you all know, we drafted a lot. We got a lot of young guys back in our secondary, first-year guys, second-year guys that we have back there. So, I know Aaron Glenn doesn't want to expose those guys, meaning one-on-one or I'm sorry, man-to-man defense all the time. I know he doesn't want to do that, so we disguise it a little bit. But we have to figure out a way to try to stop Justin Jefferson, and not just him. Look at this. Look at the league, period. I mean, each and every week we're facing receivers, Metcalf and some of the Puka and, some of these great receivers that are in the league now. But, of course, you guys have the top dog and Justin Jefferson, and we have to figure out a way of at least trying to slow him up.
Now with these corners, one young, one a veteran, rookie corner Terrion Arnold and veteran corner Carlton Davis, they've combined for 9 pass interference calls. So are they? Does Aaron Glenn have them pushing the envelope to try to get what they can get, maybe a little too much, or are they just getting beat?
No, I just think, I think with Terrion, it's a learning curve. As we know, Paul, I don't care who you are. When you come in the NFL, it's a learning curve to learning how to play in the NFL, practice in the NFL, just all those little things. Hell, we had myself and Kevin Glover had to sit Barry Sanders down when he first got in the league and point out a couple of things to him. And, of course, the rest was history with Barry. But it's a learning curve. I don't care who you are. It was with me. I don't care who you are when you get in this league. And I think Terrion is going through that. He's trying to figure out what he can get away with, with the grab and the hand fighting, all these different things. You have to learn what you could get away with in this league. And I think that's what you see from Terrion. And then with Carlton Davis, he's just aggressive. He's just an aggressive guy, period. So he's going to get up in your face. He's going to try to throw you off your route. He's going to try to be physical with you. And sometimes that kind of gets him in trouble being physical. So I just think it's just learning how, to play in our secondary. Like I say with Terrion, learning the game, but I say with Carlton Davis, learning when you can get away with certain things and when you can't get away with certain things.
All right, Lomas, last one here. The Lions offense, it's just phenomenal. Best offensive line in the NFL, according to Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Vikings, who joined my radio show yesterday. Then we have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta getting deep and those nice 2 running backs and Jared Goff with some Super Bowl pedigree. I mean, the offense is the absolute bomb. Think about this. The Vikings defense through 5 has been fantastic. So Ben Johnson, the coordinator for the Lions, and Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. Holy cow, Lomas, this is a heavyweight fight.
That's the matchup. I keep saying that's the matchup right there. That's the chess. Who's going to move the right chess piece? Who's going to make the timely move? Who's going to be bold enough to make that aggressive move at the right time? It's just all these little intricacies that go into calling games, calling defenses, putting guys in position to have success, showing the defense something maybe they hadn't seen or hadn't seen in a while, trying to use a lot of eye candy to draw the defense to a certain way and run it another way. It's just so many little things that not only Brian Flores but Ben Johnson are going to have to do, different motions, just a whole bunch of different formation things that I think we're going to see not only from our standpoint and the defense, but from you guys' standpoint, from our offense. So it's going to be a battle. I think that's where the battle is going to be won and lost at, with which coach can call the right game and put his guys in position to have the most success on Sunday.
Lomas, absolutely terrific. Look forward to seeing you at U.S. Bank this weekend. Congratulations on the fantastic career. Tell Dan the Man on the Fan, Paul Allen says hello, and God bless you and your family, okay?
I will, Paul. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure. look forward to talking to you more, Paul.
Yes, sir. That's Lomas Brown. He is football immortality, former left tackle for the Detroit Lions, blocked for Barry Sanders. 9 to noon, courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. What's on deck includes Minnesota Wild coach John Hines at about 10 o'clock. Alas, there's much more on the entertainment docket, including Vikes Bites around the corner. Speaking of Vikes Bites, it's led and orchestrated by Mad Producer, joins us now.
The Fan, along with two men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. So go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword bills. You might be able to pay some. You might win $1,000 with the keyword bills at KFAN.com. Welcome back, 9 to noon.
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites is always provided by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Minnesota, it's a Minnesota company, Clearwater, Minnesota raised, and you can find them online, thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. You can shop online, or you can go to local Coburn's locations, local co-ops. They're a proud sponsor of Gopher Athletics as well. Love you, Thousand Hills.
Vikes Bites.
How about this?
Matt LaFleur implores the quiet Lambeau crowd to get loud. Handoff back to Akers, up the middle, across the 5, to the goal line. Touchdown! Cam Akers with his first touchdown wearing purple and gold. And the first rushing touchdown of the season for the Minnesota Vikings is a 6-yard production, and Minnesota leads 6-0.
I forgot about that as I was trying to find the highlight. That was in October. I think that was week 8. That's week 8 at Lambeau.
Oh, wow.
And it was Cam Akers.
That's right.
With the first rushing touchdown for the Vikings offense of 2023.
Crazy.
The Vikings traded for him and end up letting him go. He suffers an Achilles injury. He rehabs. He reemerges with the Houston Texans, but the Vikings can't get enough of Cam Akers to the degree that they have traded for him. He is now back in purple, PA. A 2026 conditional 6th rounder gets you Akers, and it's effectively, it looks like a pick swap. The Texans are bringing a 2026 conditional 7th along with Mr. Akers to Minnesota. And many people kind of wondering, hey, does this lend credence to the idea that Aaron Jones could be out longer than expected? Is it simply bolstering the depth of a running back room? Maybe it's a combination of those things. Where's your head at on Cam Akers returning to the Minnesota Vikings?
Kevin O'Connell's adoration for Cam Akers is as high as I've heard him discuss really any player this side of Harrison Smith. He's had accolades for a lot of players, Justin Jefferson and so on. But his time working with Cam Akers with the Los Angeles Rams and the injuries through which Cam pushed when he was there, including an Achilles, the other Achilles, not the one he popped last year. Kevin has a super high level of respect for Akers. In fact, in the pregame interview that I taped with Kevin before the Texans game, where Cam used to play, he might have spent 2.5 minutes of the 4.5 talking about Cam. And Cam Akers, with his truncated time here last year, it was apparent with what the lot in life or what the stable was like with the running backs with Alexander Madison. All right, now Madison's going to bulldog on you and get some tough love yardage between the tackles, catches it better than people give him credit for, and he has a nifty little move after he catches it. See the smoke screen at Tottenham Hotspur a couple of years ago. But he's not shifty. Ty Chandler, in his second year last year, was having some pass protection problems. He's faster than all of them, but he was just in his second year, now just in his third year. Aaron Jones. The fact that Jones was out even on the Mike Hughes Memorial Field Monday, I think is positive. Today, the first injury report comes out. I'm not even going to guess what Aaron's going to be listed on it, but like I said yesterday, if it were a heaven or hell equation, and I got to be right, I would guess Aaron plays this weekend. There was, whether it's with my chat with Aaron in the locker room at Tottenham Hotspur or just kind of feeling it out a little bit yesterday at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. I don't have any major Vikings fan-related concerns that Aaron Jones is going to miss any form of extended time, and that could include this weekend's game. So now how do we get to Cam? Well, if the play-calling head coach trusts you and has a way to get to you, then he's going to do it. You know, and Cam Akers is smart. Cam Akers, you could just see it last year. I mean, right when he came in, he was hitting the right hole. He was sliding the right way. He was falling forward. He had a play at Atlanta. I can't remember which Josh Dobbs touchdown it was. Do you remember that player for the Falcons he just annihilated at the 5?
Oh.
Dobbs down the sideline. Might have been Dobbs' first touchdown.
I think it was either, it may have been his first touchdown. Let's see. I can find the highlight. It's worth trying to find it now because you mentioned the block, I believe.
Yeah.
1 second here. Vikings, Falcons.
Yeah, I have all that in front of me. I don't know which one it is. Let me try this one. Josh Dobbs goes out of the shotgun, puts Brandon Powell in motion.
Third down.
4 receivers. Dobbs looks left, shakes the shoulders, gets away from the pressure right, pumps on a Falcons linebacker, shakes the tackle at the 15-10. Touchdown! Josh Dobbs! Let's go! 21-19 Atlanta. It's an 18-yard touchdown run by the new kid in town, Josh Dobbs.
Let's listen to this one. I think it was a big third down conversion.
This is 3rd and 10 from the Falcons 13, trailing by 8 deep in the first half, led by Josh Dobbs, who takes the Bradbury snap. Josh Dobbs. Big blitz, and Dobbs is able to get away from the blitzer. Sprints out right. Now he gets to the 20, to the 15, to the 10. Excellent block by Cam Akers. Nice
and
find. Dobbs is inside the 5.
See if you mentioned the name.
Done, Cam Akers. I mean, I know it's Dobbs doing all the running, and the elusive nature of the quarterback
first down
leads to an 11-yard first down run. How about Cam Akers with the assist? I mean, he bludgeoned a player in the most spectacular fashion. This side of Adrian Peterson trucking William Gay in the center of the field on an angle route.
Oh, the Steelers bit?
At Heinz Field. Ooh. Yes. I mean, so that's what Cam does. So now, okay, so where is he in the pecking order? I have no idea. But, you know, what context or what pieces can we put together here to understand why this happened? A, you're not giving up much. 1A, off the 1, here's the 1A. Just remember the analogy that I've just kind of shared in passing over the last several months about the general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, identifying players who play in the NFL, let's call it the New York Stock Exchange, compared to draft picks on Saturday and even deep on Friday being the NASDAQ. I mean, I think my man's made a fundamental change that he's going to dabble in the market where he knows he's best. Cam Akers is in that Secondly, Jones is nicked up. Thirdly, O'Connell brought this up yesterday, and I had forgotten it. But I think it was O'Connell. But that drop that Chandler had at London
on the toss,
the toss, that it ended up being a Darnold fumble because Chandler never had control of it. He's got to have control of it. He tried to turn it up too fast.
Darnold takes the L?
I think Darnold took the L, unless they change that.
Well, O'Connell did say that he's caught 1,000 of those.
Yeah.
He's got to catch that one.
Right, but that bugged him. You could just tell that bugged him. He brought it up, and now Cam Akers is here. So that's about the only way to look at it. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
He's caught 1,000 of those. He has to catch that, and he will catch that. Cool. Cam Akers is here. So Cam has just seen so much more than a Myles Gaskin and or a Ty Chandler. So this is a move clearly to fortify something that's already good. Yeah. Minnesota Vikings offense, and just keep your eyes on the prize by fortifying certain spots. Reisner returns, Hawkinson's on the mend, things like that. Where you fortify what's already good, and you do so from an undefeated mark. Welcome back to the Covenant, Cam Akers.
Last thing for you, we're up against who we want to get in touch with Mr. Florio next segment. But
sorry,
no, it's all good, and it's great too because next hour I have some audio, some coach speak, and I want to include a couple more Vikes Bites for you. But real quick, a lot of questions around the idea of so you trade for Cam Akers. You see what the Bills did yesterday. They acquire Amari Cooper, and there's kind of that idea, that perception then of going all in. Now, whether it's Shakir or it's Holmes, the rookie from Florida State, maybe this is a statement of we need more at that spot.
Keon Coleman.
We couldn't just replace 240 targets of Gabriel and Diggs with a rookie and a couple of cast-offs from other teams.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, do you feel like the Vikings potentially are in the market to do more over the next couple of weeks?
Well,
there's a push for it.
They're always in the market with this general manager.
Yeah.
They're always in the market. He one of the many great things about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, at least from a fan standpoint, is there forever is a line of delineation with the moves that he makes, where it's kind of easy to tell good or bad. Whether it's not murky. Now this Acre situation, it's a little different because it's fortifying. But absolutely, I mean, if there's something they can afford and something that they feel can fortify a team that has a legitimate chance to get to the Super Bowl, then the general manager, I would assume, would be all in.
Hey, we got money.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, with his weekly stop into the Love Covenant, is around the corner on FM 100.3 KFAN.
Man.
Let's whip out Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, PFT, we. Also NBC's Football Night in America. And Mike also is the author of a new book called Son of Mine. It's the follow-up to Father of Mine, and the series has a gangster lean to it. Learn more at ProFootballTalk.com. Mike, big one here Sunday. The Lions are in town, and the Vikings are undefeated and rested off a bye. What do you think happens in this one? And good morning.
Well, good morning, Paul. The Vikings are going to have their hands full. I remember an extended period of time where the Vikings ran roughshod over the Lions. That is not the case anymore. Not that the Lions are going to run roughshod over the Vikings, but that is a difficult offense to stop. They showed off a lot of wrinkles at a time when the game was in hand against the Cowboys. It was a combination of maybe rubbing it into the Cowboys a little bit, but also putting everyone else on notice of the things you need to be looking for, the things you need to be aware of, the ways that the Lions can hurt you with their very creative offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. I had a recently former head coach text me on Sunday saying there is no one else right now in the NFL from a play design and play calling standpoint that is even close to Ben Johnson. Now, Kevin O'Connell and Kyle Shanahan might disagree, or at least people who believe in them might disagree, but Johnson viewed as head and shoulders above everyone, and we're seeing it with that Lions offense, and they need it without Aiden Hutchinson. For as good as he is, the Lions are so good beyond him that they can overcome the absence of Hutchinson. If injuries start to pile up, that's a different story. But they can overcome the absence of Hutchinson, and the Vikings will have their hands full. And then to have to turn around short week it to L.A., to play the Rams on a Thursday night. That 5-0 can become 5-2. I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, but 5-0 can quickly become 5-2.
Ben Johnson versus Brian Flores and what he's getting out of the Vikings defense. That's a stone cold, old school, like Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Thrilla in Manila heavyweight fight, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And the challenge is get to Jared Goff, get pressure on him, just like with most quarterbacks, but the best of the best quarterbacks are able to get away from pressure. Look at what Josh Allen did the other night. He had that touchdown pass to Dawson Knox late in the first half where it looked like he ran a military-style obstacle course before he was able to throw the ball up and under and over and around. Goff can't do that. Goff has that Kirk Cousins quality where if you give him time, and if you watch some of the plays from the Lions-Cowboys game, he's got 6-7 seconds to set up and throw. Somebody's going to be wide open if you give an NFL-caliber quarterback that kind of time to set up and make his reads and wait for someone to spring free. So it's going to be important to get pressure on him quickly, force him to make decisions before he wants to, and just try to bang him around within the confines of the rules, bang him around a little bit to get him to be watching the rush instead of looking downfield for all those open receivers he has.
Hey, Mike.
PFT.
If the Vikings beat the Lions, they'll start 6-0 for the first time since 2009. Does this team in any way, obviously sans the iconic HOF Brett Favre, does this team in any way have a feel to you of that 2009 vibe?
No, because, and I mean this with all due respect and deference to Sam Darnold, he's not Brett Favre. He's not Brett Favre. And, there have been other years where it felt like the Vikings got off to a magical start. 98, for example. Now, Randall Cunningham was playing better than he ever did after he got thrust into service when Brad Johnson breaks the bone in his lower leg week 2 at St. Louis. But I'm concerned, and I think this is an interesting thought exercise. Did the Jets expose Sam Darnold and create a blueprint for dealing with him in the Minnesota offense, or was it just the Jets are so damn good that they're the only ones who can pull that off? And I think we're going to find that out on Sunday because the Lions defense, based upon the points they've given up this year, not nearly as potent as the Jets defense.
You dropped a piece at ProFootballTalk.com over the weekend about Matthew Stafford, the Rams quarterback, and the potential that he could be traded. And you laid out some reasons why. What led you to that?
Well, I'm not privy to pulling back the curtain completely. But sometimes there are things I write that are the product of the meanderings of my addled brain. Sometimes there are things I write that are the product of ideas planted by things I'm hearing from people when it's not quite enough yet to report it, but it's enough to float it. And there's enough for me to do in football season. I saw some people were upset that I suggested that Travis Etienne is going to be available and is available in trade from the Jaguars. I don't just sit around saying, what can I make up? And if I was going to make stuff up, it would be far more interesting than most of the stuff we have. But there's reason to believe. Look at the Rams. I mean, it doesn't require high-level skullduggery to come to the conclusion that maybe Stafford would like to, if he had his druthers, go to a team where he could finish the season with a chance to, get to the playoffs, compete for a Super Bowl, go to a better situation, go to a better spot. And I'm not saying he wants out, and he would never ask for it. He's the classic old-school, strong, silent type who never complains about anything. And look how many years it took for him to finally get out of Detroit. If it was Peyton Manning stuck in that dysfunctional hellhole that it used to be in Detroit, he would have been demanding his way out after 2 seasons. Stafford was there for over a decade, so I don't know that he'll do it, but you get an injury to a starting quarterback of a contending team between now and the deadline, which is coming up in 2 weeks and 6 days, I think that phone potentially rings, and I think the Rams potentially flip a guy who's still got top 10 quarterback traits. My question is, and Paul, I'll ask you this, and I ask all the listeners to ask themselves this question honestly and objectively. If you could swap out Matthew Stafford for Sam Darnold right now, does that improve the Vikings' fortunes for the 2024 season? I think the answer is yes, and I'm willing to entertain the argument to be made by anyone who would say the answer is no.
I would shade yes now out of respect for Stafford, and that's without knowing what he's gone through with one of these 19 injuries he seems to have every single week. He's one of the toughest players in the history of the NFL with what he's played through during the course of his year. Obviously, he and O'Connell were together for a Super Bowl victory. But arm strength-wise, does he still bring it? I mean, he's right at the end as the first overall pick in 2009. And Darnold, let's not forget, is coming off September Offensive Player of the Month in the NFC. So things came back to the pack a little bit in the Jets game after they lost Aaron Jones, no doubt about it. But no, I wouldn't be willing to ponder or consider that at this moment.
Matthew Stafford is 36, not as old as you would think he is. Brett Favre turned 40 during his first year with the Vikings in 2009 on October the 10th. So this is a guy who's younger than Favre was by 4 years, and you've got this group of games coming up before the deadline: Lions, at Rams, and then the Colts. I just think that if 5-0 becomes 5-2, it's a conversation you need to have, especially if 5-2 happens because Stafford goes off in prime time against the Vikings. Now, the reality for the Rams is, are they ready to fold the tents and move on from Stafford? They need to lose some games. It could be that the Rams beating the Vikings actually would complicate any potential trade of Stafford because the Rams may think, why are we giving up? And at 1-4, it can change quickly. You got 3 weekends of football left before we know where the teams are in the standings before the trade window closes for good until March of 2025. So it's an interesting conversation to have, because if the Rams continue on their current track, why wouldn't you consider getting value for a guy who quite possibly retires or gets cut after this season? They've been in a weird spot with Stafford the past couple of years. The Rams were hoping that Aaron Rodgers to the Jets wouldn't have happened, so the Jets would pivot to Matthew Stafford in early 23. There was some off-season stuff between Stafford and the Rams because Stafford wanted more financial protection beyond this year. He got some, but not much. So there's reason to keep an eye on the Rams. And obviously, if you have a serious injury to a starter on a contending team, Stafford becomes the obvious alternative. But I think some of the contenders need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Is Stafford better than what we currently have? And how much farther can we go with Stafford as our quarterback?
It's all very fair. And it's I recall the year he won the Super Bowl with the Rams. Matthew did lead the NFL in interceptions that year too. So he threw like 40 touchdowns, but I'm pretty sure he led the NFL in picks too.
Hey, if it wins the Super Bowl, who cares how many interceptions he throws? If he's going to win the Super Bowl for you, who cares? And
he was great in the Super Bowl and the postseason. Looking at his stats now, I mean, he's taken 16 sacks for 5 games. So I don't know if that's a product of like reshuffling of an offensive line.
Their offensive line's been banged up. They've had a ton of injuries this year, and they don't have their best receivers. Puka Nakua's been gone. He had the knee injury that was aggravated. Cooper Kupp had an ankle injury, and he's been gone forever. Could you imagine Matthew Stafford and Justin Jefferson? Could you just allow yourself to entertain for a few minutes the possibility of Matthew Stafford slinging it to JJ, to Jordan Addison, to TJ Hawkinson, if and when he comes back? It really could dramatically improve the Vikings offense. And I look at it this way.
Emphasis
at the end of the day,
could.
Kevin O'Connell knows better than anyone. He's been around Darnold enough, and he was around Stafford long enough to be able to look at the two guys and make an assessment as to whether or not you go from, and here's what the Vikings are trying to break the mold of. Because you look at the Cowboys right now, they're in this mess. The Jets are in this mess where it's do your best, try to make the playoffs, and if you get there, you're going to walk into a buzzsaw in the divisional round. That's been the Vikings' experience since when? 2009, when they do get to the playoffs. The cap is, other than that Minneapolis Miracle deal from 2017, the cap is divisional round because the best teams in the conference too good for the Vikings to compete with. With Darnold at quarterback, I feel less optimistic about the Vikings getting back to the NFC Championship. With Stafford, I feel more optimistic. With Stafford, I feel optimistic that they could get to a Super Bowl this year. And I know that's a strong statement, but they're 5-0, and you look around the conference, and when you look at what the defense is doing with Brian Flores, I don't think it's irresponsible to make that suggestion. It's in football, we're constantly thinking about best interest of the team, and guys are constantly benched if it means someone else better is healthy or available or whatever. And I don't think it's an insult to Sam Darnold to at least have the conversation, because maybe the answer is no, we're better off with Sam Darnold, but you've got to at least have the conversation and consider if Stafford's available, if he wants out of L.A., and why wouldn't he at this point? Is there a way to do this? And does it mean that the Vikings increase significantly enough their chances to get to a Super Bowl for the first time since I was 11 years old.
Speaking of conversations, Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. How about old Jerry Jones melting down on that radio conversation and getting after the host? I mean, Big Boss is cracking due to his Cowboys right now, isn't he?
Well, he said that he pays the guys who were doing the interview. Now, I don't know whether this is just further evidence of how the NFL gets its brain warped between the customer is always right and the seller is always right, because when the inventory is limited, the seller is always right. And if 105.3 The Fan in Dallas-Fort Worth doesn't play nice, somebody else will be the Dallas Cowboys flagship radio station. Some are suggesting that maybe he thought he was talking to a DallasCowboys.com podcast and not to an independent radio station. But I think that the frustration that we saw from Jerry, because he takes a lot of questions and he handles tough questions and he word salads his way around any and all topics that others might crumble if faced with. I think he's getting a little bit sensitive because he doesn't really have answers for why did you drag your feet with CeeDee Lamb? Why did you drag your feet with Dak Prescott?
Right.
Why didn't you get Derrick Henry? We couldn't afford him. Baloney, you couldn't afford him. 2 years, $16 million. A lot of people whiffed on Derrick Henry, but he was training in Dallas and wanted the Cowboys to call him. So they failed to address their flaws that got them blown out by the Packers last year. They failed to address them. So why are we surprised that through 3 home games this year, they've been down 21-6, 28-6, and 27-6, and they are not a team that is built to play from behind. And so they're just kind of stuck, and I think fans are starting to figure out the grift. And the grift is this: act like you're obsessed with winning a Super Bowl every year. Act like you're tormented by not winning a Super Bowl every year. And you continue to be America's team. You continue to be good enough. You continue to make a ton of money. And, you know, he says from time to time you'd be surprised by the size of the check I'd write if it guaranteed the Cowboys winning a Super Bowl. I think we'd be surprised by the size of the check because it would be much smaller than we expect it to be. Because fundamentally, he and Bengals owner Mike Brown have one thing in common. They are both cheap. And I think he lashed out because people are starting to figure it out.
You, my friend, are the very best. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll call you next week.
Bye, Paul.
That's Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. John Hines, coach of the Minnesota Wild, off a victory last night as an underdog against the St. Louis Blues. Coach Hines next.